So, good morning, everybody. Sure that you hope have yesterday a great day with site visit, field visit, and that you have enjoyed your day yesterday. Today we have also a great session. We will begin with this morning with the session deal with innovation, new initiative in our Jewish community. I'm Jacques Benichou from France, Fonds Social Juif Unifié, and I will also give you some example of new initiative, for example, in the cultural world, in tech, in care, different new way to approach Jewish community, inside the community, and people that are outside of our community, but they are Jewish. So this morning we will have two presentations, also good example of innovation. The first one will be made by J. Michaelson. J. Michaelson is the author of 3 books and 200 articles in religion, Judaism, sexuality laws, whose work has been featured on CNN, NPR, and other media. Jay is a contributing editor of the Forward founding editors of Zik magazine and founding Plenary, a leading national LGBT Jewish organization. In 2009, he was included on the Forward 50 list of prominent American Jews, and in 2010, he won a New York Society of Professional Journalists Award for his article about the growing gap between American Jews and Israel. Jay holds a GD from Yale and BA from Columbia University, and he will soon complete his PhD in Jewish thought at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. His most recent book, God vs. Gay, The Rogers Case for Equality, was an Amazon.com bestseller and a Lambda Literature Award finalist. Annette became executive director of the Israel Religious Action Center in 2002. Previously, Mrs. Hoffman served as Jerusalem City Councilwoman for 14 years, carving out a niche for herself as a huntering warrior for justice and equality. She has dedicated her adult life to the Jewish principle of Tikkun Olam, which literally means repairing the world. It is this commitment to social action and justice that have formed her career. Annette was a founding member of Women of the Wall, and she served on the board of the Israel Women Network, the Association for Civil Rights in Israel, and many other Israeli organizations for social change. So let's have this presentation, 20 minutes each presentation. Then I will encourage you to open the discussion on other initiatives, because you know that this session is about how to bring other people using technology such as Facebook, Twitter, and internet programs. And perhaps I'm sure that you have a lot of ideas or a lot of examples to bring on the table, to put on the table in order to enrich this session. So, Jay, it's to you now.
Boker Tov, good morning, everybody. I'll speak in English. I think it'll be less awkward for everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. It's actually really nice to be here and with people who have dedicated, their professional lives to, I think, what we could consider really important work. I want to talk. This is supposed to be a TED-style talk in a way. But I'm going to be a little less flashy than that. I want to talk a little bit about some of the ways in which what I call iSpirituality, the new kind of ways in which spirituality is being practiced, primarily in America, and how that's impacting the work that all of us are involved in. Not sure if you got in the bio, but I'm also a Jewish communal professional. I run a gay and lesbian organization called Nehirim. It's the largest community LGBT organization in America. And I've been involved in a lot of the same work I think that many of us have been involved in, reaching out to members of the community, trying to meet their needs, and trying, as one person said, to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. So in a way, this can be seen as a report from America, but I think all identity, not just Jewish identity, not just American Jewish identity, is shifting and changing in ways which can be very terrifying, but which also I think can be very inspiring. What I'm going to do is talk about 4 features of this emerging kind of postmodern Jewish identity, 4 challenges that it presents for the work that we're doing, and 4 opportunities or recommendations, kind of tachlis recommendations for the future. I'm using as my introductory model a website which some of you may know, some of you may not, called Pinterest. You may have seen it in the program and thought it was a typo. It was not a typo. Pinterest is an online community, a way of sharing information and things that you like based primarily on images rather than on text. I randomly found one person who has a pin board called Nice Jewish Girl, where she's pinned her various favorite Jewish things, which include a Hanukkah wreath and a nice Star Wars Happy Hanukkah poster, which I personally like. And I'm using this as a framework, or as a way in, to talk about the ways in which DIY, do-it-yourself Judaism is emerging, particularly among younger Jews, picking and choosing from different aspects of Jewish identity. I'll use another metaphor which is maybe a little more familiar than Pinterest. And that metaphor is, you may remember when you wanted to buy music, you would go to a store and there was a big black plastic disc that you would go to the store, and on that disc somebody would have put the songs in a particular order, and you would buy it and put it on it was called, I think, a record player. You would put it on and there was a needle and it would scratch a little. You remember this thing, right? So today, people who are 30 years old have grown up with a very different way of accessing their music, right? The iPod, in which instead of having a pre-programmed order of songs in one genre that someone else has presented, they're mixing and matching, right? And what makes a good iPod playlist, like a good Pinterest board, is not unity, but multiplicity. It's not having just one style over and over and over again, one denomination, one way of feeling Jewish, one set of values which we all have in common. Davka, what makes it an interesting Pinterest board is the juxtaposition of different styles. And a good playlist on iTunes is a playlist that brings in from all different kinds of places and all different kinds of genres. I'll just scroll down so you keep getting new things to look at from the Nice Jewish Girl on Pinterest. So exactly the opposite of a top-down, preset, expert-curated Jewish identity is what's natural for the entire kind of younger generation that we're supposedly trying to reach and engage in Jewish life. And this is not a recommendation, this is a fact. Whether we want to accept it or not, that's up to us. But this is the change that's actually taking place. So there are 4 features, I think, of Pinterest Judaism or iSpirituality, whatever metaphor you'd like to use. So what's interesting about Pinterest? First is that it's what's called Web 2.0. The first World Wide Web was experts curating content, and we would be consumers going to a website like reading Haaretz or reading the New York Times, and somebody else will have chosen the content for that experience, right? Web 2.0, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and so forth, is user-created, right? We're not consumers, we're participants. We're not interested in being given an experience. We're interested in creating our own experience and having an experience that's created by our friends and by our peers, right? The idea that when I go to a JCC or when I go to a synagogue, I'm going to receive a Jewish experience that somebody else has curated for me is in contradiction to how I live the rest of my life, which is I'm creating it with my friends, right? Web 2.0. Pinterest is image-based. It's very postmodern in the way it juxtaposes challah and mazel tov socks, I guess, right? It juxtaposes the sublime and the ridiculous, the serious and the not serious. And Pinterest reminds us that the virtual is real, right? If you have kids, or if you yourself are one of the people like me who's addicted to one of these devices, my whole talk is on my device, right? And when I'm not on here, I'll pretend to be listening, but I might be tweeting while I'm on the panel, right? The virtual is real. This is how community is constituted. Second feature, relatedly to iSpirituality, the spirituality, religion, Jewish identity in the age of the iPod. So the top-down model, I think, is over. Again, we may want to deny that fact because we've been doing top-down Jewish programming for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. We may want to say it's impossible or the barriers to entry are too high or you need too much education to create your own Jewish experience. But the reality is that every other form of identity is constituted in this way. You can't customize enough your Jewish experience if you're still committed to a top-down model. So it's interesting, I think, that both in Israel and in the United States, about a year ago, there was an eruption, a wave of self-generated social protest. Right? So here in the summer, in America in the fall with the Occupy movement, what was striking about these movements was precisely that the mainstream media couldn't figure out who to talk to. Right? There wasn't a leader, there wasn't a platform, there wasn't a top-down hierarchy. Right? And exactly the same kinds of identity we see over and over and over again. It's interesting. I was on a panel at the President's Conference last week, and there was information from the latest study. The latest study telling us this is the end of the Jews. Right? We hear these every 20 or 30 years. This is the end of the Jews. This is the end of the Jews. The latest study noted that denominations and synagogue membership is in decline in the United States. And this was proof, I was told by someone on my panel, that Israel is the answer and that we have to forget about diaspora Judaism because we're doomed to assimilation. If Israel is the answer, we're asking the wrong question. I'll repeat that. If Israel is the answer, we're asking the wrong question. If anything is the answer, we're asking the wrong question. There is no the answer, right? To me, the decline in denominations is a positive development, because it shows to me that the increase in independent minyanim, in people rolling their own Judaism, trans-denominationalism, which is my own Jewish identity. So I grew up conservative. I then became Baal Tshuva. I was Orthodox for 10 years. Now I'm post-whatever. I don't fit that kind of a label anymore. I'm Shomer Shabbat. I'm Shomer Kashrut, but I don't wear a kippah, so go figure. I see that as a positive development, not as a negative development. Right? And we can be many Jewish professionals, and I'll include myself sometimes in this camp, we preach to the choir rather than listening to the people in our communities and drawing from them how they're creating their Jewish identity. Okay. Third feature of what I'm calling iSpirituality is something about mixing and matching, just like this Pinterest board that's right behind me. Mixing and matching, juxtaposing, maybe it coheres. This person seems very interested in Hanukkah. So maybe there's more coherence than there we go. Something that's not about Hanukkah, a cute dog in a kippah. Mixing and matching, taking from different places. Maybe there is no primary identity, right? Maybe there is no one identity. So I work in the LGBT community, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community. Many people who come to my programs, the Nehirim's programs, we have Shabbatonim, we get 100 and some odd people every weekend, not every weekend of the year. Each time we do a Shabbaton around the country. Some of them identify as Jewish first and gay or lesbian second. Some of them identify as gay or lesbian first and Jewish second. Some of them identify as American. Some of them identify as Jewish American, American Jewish. Remember those games from 20 years ago? There may not be a particular primary identity, just like there may not be one picture that captures all of our identity on a Pinterest board. So DIY Judaism asks us as professionals, I'll get to the recommendations in a minute, asks us a different question, which is how can I empower potential participants in my community to create their own experience? Right? Do you see the difference? Rather than how can I give them a program which they can buy as a consumer, how can I give them tools so that in the absence of a regular dati or a day school education, they can create this experience for themselves? How can I hook them up with a website, for example, like Haggadot.com, which is a wonderful website, kind of open source Judaism. The idea of Haggadot.com, each part of the Seder for Passover, there are 20 or 30 options that you can choose, right? So one would be traditional, one would be environmental, one would be social justice, one would be, and you mix and match your Seder, right? And the different parts, Kadesh Rechatz, Karpatz Yachatz, might be from different sources, right? And that's the kind of postmodern Seder, I think. That's the kind of tool which we as professionals can give people to say, well, here are the resources. Now, like Seil Mad, now go and learn. Last, and the fourth feature, I think, of iSpirituality has to do with function rather than myth. In America, it's very fashionable right now to say I'm spiritual but not religious. Now, a lot of people want to put that down. Oh, it means you just do yoga too much, or you live in California, or whatever. But I actually take this very seriously. I think the idea means it's a pragmatic orientation rather than a mythic orientation. What does this do? Not just for me individually, but for me and for my community and for my planet. What does this do? If I'm going to go to services on Friday night, to tefillot for Kabbalat Shabbat, what does that do? Does it connect me to my community? Does it give me a spiritual experience? Does it inform me? It's interesting, many synagogues are experimenting with divrei tzedek rather than divrei Torah, right? Words of social justice rather than just the traditional words of Torah. What does this experience do? Right? This does mean there's less loyalty to the totems that used to bind our community together. So whether it's Israel, the Holocaust, and anti-Semitism, or whether it's membership in giving to a federation or membership in a community, it is true that we now have more of a challenge. But I think that's a challenge we should accept. It's a challenge of self-definition. Right? What is the takeaway from what I'm offering? Right? And if that takeaway is engaging young people in service so that they can help the less fortunate, Beseder, right? I've articulated what it is that I, as a potential participant, might be searching for. I want to make this last point, and then we'll move on to the challenges. In my opinion, real authenticity, Jewish authenticity, is not about some mythical link to an ancient mythical past, but it's about the integrity of how we make our Jewish choices, right? It's about how we choose, not what we choose, and certainly not some myth that if we could only go back 200 years when my marriage wouldn't be seen as valid, when women wouldn't be out of the home, into some mythic Jewish past, like Fiddler on the Roof, it could be some sort of wonderful myth that we could all be in some unbroken, unified community, right? I don't see that as authenticity. I see that as kitsch. And whether we're Dati, whether we're Orthodox, whether we're Chiloni, whether we're secular, whether we're anywhere in between, conservativi, wherever, however we perform our Jewish identity, it's a reconstitution. It's something new, even if it's pretending to be something old. And the question is, how much integrity do we have in making those choices? So 4 challenges and then 4 recommendations. First, there's the challenge of thickness versus thinness. I don't think that having a t-shirt that says Hebrew School Dropout is necessarily a thick kind of Jewish identity, right? It's very thin. It's very shallow. What about when the Hebrew School Dropout has children? Will she send her kids to Hebrew school, right? There's a challenge about Jewish continuity and a challenge that we all have to thicken this kind of postmodern Jewish identity. Second, there's a challenge of resources, because what a funder may want may be the opposite of what this audience may want, right? And there's really a reliance, I think, particularly in America, sometimes, I'll just say it frankly, on the lowest common denominator. That if we just can find the lowest common denominator of our resources, of our institutions, then the people with resources will give, and hopefully we'll reach the people who will be the cultural creatives, right? The Rise of the Creative Class, a very important book. I think everyone should read it. Incidentally, I'd also recommend reading the book Change by Design, which has been translated into Hebrew as well. Both of these books very important, I think, for how we build Jewish institutions, right? So that's a challenge if we take away the lowest common denominator. Third, it's much harder to control the message. If we empower participants to create their own Jewish experiences, we may not like what they come up with. We may not like it politically, right? It may be too left. It may be too right. We may not like it ethically. We may not like the boundaries between Jewish and not Jewish that they set up. It's harder for us to control the message, right, when we empower participants to be adults rather than children. But fourth, and I think the most important challenge, is that, in my opinion at least, this is inevitable. This is inevitable. There's no point trying to recycle your old Judaism or go back to an earlier time in Jewish identity. It's just not, it doesn't seem to be working that way. And if it feels better to preach to the choir in an echo chamber of committed Jews like us, people who are already devoted to the Jewish community, then Baruch Hashem, then preach to the choir, but don't feel surprised when numbers of affiliation decrease. In America, we're very worried about the unaffiliated. In my opinion, the unaffiliated are the disaffiliated. They're choosing. They're making a choice. They're not ignorant. They're not stupid. They're choosing a different kind of experience. Finally, 4 recommendations. Tachlis, what can we do as Jewish service, communal professionals? What might we possibly do? First, I think there's an important shift from content to platform. If you're running Pinterest, the website Pinterest, you're not producing any content. You're producing a platform, and users are creating the content, right? The result may be that your agency may look more like a food court and less like a restaurant. It may look like where different participants are doing different things, but we're doing it together. So in America, there's this notion of the Cineplex model, right? A synagogue that does 5 or 10 different things, but people come together, right? There is not going to be one silver bullet, one answer, right? So for some, the Jewish identity may be about social justice, about activism. That may be how I do my Jewish identity. Again, in my community, people who are very active in the LGBT community, that's the way they access their Jewishness. It may be connection to Israel for some people. It may be meditation or spirituality for others. It may be environmentalism for other people. It may be just culture, right? It may well be T-shirts that say nice Jewish girl and Hebrew school dropout. Let's see what else she likes. I didn't actually preface this page too, so I have no idea what's going to happen when I scroll down. So moving from content to platform. Second recommendation, empower participants, don't serve clients. Right? Don't program for yourselves, and don't even program for others. Find ways to give resources and give space to motivated to whether it's the creative class or the talented 10th or whoever it is, that boutique Judaism, that smaller group of people who really do care, but who lack the resources to do so. So I mentioned my friend Sean Landris, who's here in the front row, right, running an organization, one of the organizations kind of jump-starting the Jewish future, you could say, and empowering younger Jewish entrepreneurs to take their projects to the next level. All of us should be doing similar jump-starting in our own, whether we're running a service agency or whether we're in a Jewish communal setting. We can all be empowering participants rather than serving clients. Third, we need to build bridges. This phenomenon of iSpirituality is not just in New York and San Francisco, but there are gaps. We need better bridges between Israel and the United States to exchange this back and forth. It was great when I came to Jerusalem a week ago and saw posters for Balkan Beatbox, which got its start in the new Jewish culture, which I was also part of. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. There needs to be kind of a 3-way exchange, I think, at least. Israel, Europe, and United States, and I would say the rest of the world, so maybe a 4-way exchange, right? And I've seen this happen. In the Russian-speaking communities in greater New York, where I live, which is a huge percentage, right? The kind of Jewishness that those communities are interested in doesn't even make sense. It's a different category to people who are still thinking of Judaism as a religion, right? And yet, it's a very vibrant kind of Jewishness that's happening now in the Russian-speaking community. So building bridges. And finally, I would say something about, we're looking at envisioning the future. I think there is a way that we can think about planning for the future. What will the education of nice Jewish girls' kids look like? It's not going to look like the forms of education that we've offered in the past. And the challenge to us is not to despair over nice Jewish girl, but to actually plan for what the next generation is really going to look like. And that is work that is very much before us. And if it does seem like sometimes an awesome challenge, you know, I fall back on that very important Jewish teaching that it's not up to us to complete that work, but we're not free to desist from it either. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay. I would like to welcome Wanda Gavers for the Recognition Awards. Sorry, I forgot this great moment this before the first presentation. Could you please join us?
Boker Tov. I'm Brenda Geverts from the Jewish Communal Service Association, and I have had the enormous pleasure of accompanying a group of award winners this past week throughout Israel, going to various communal agencies and organizations to see the
שעושים עלינו ניסויים. המדינה, כשרצתה למנוע מהם לבקר שמה, עשתה זאת. הם ניסו לפני כמה שנים לנסוע לסוריה, חיכו להם שוטרים במעבר, לקחו מהם את הדרכונים ואמרו להם תחזרו בחזרה הביתה. ולא אפשרה להם לבקר. אף אחד לא עצר להם. הדבר הזה גורם תסיסה גדולה מאוד, שתפגע יראו מחר, כאשר יבואו מאות אנשים לגבות את השכם. באופן כללי היה זה שבוע די שיגרתי, חוץ מחידוש הלחימה בדרום, לב ערבי שמתנגחים לצרכים בנסרת התנאים של תושבי דרום תל אביב. יהודים לא אוהבים ערבים כנסים בכללה, וערבים לא רוצים יהודים בטייבה. אחמד טיבי דורש להתחשב, הוא לא רוצה שיקראו למרכז החלל בטייבה במימון משרד המדע, על שם אילן רמון, הוא זוכה לתגובות מזונות. אין ספק שיש לי אמפתיה לטרגדיה האישית של משפחת רמון. הפרק של האסטרונאוטיקה הוא פרק מרשים. אבל אילן רמון, בקורות החיים שלו, כתוב שוב טייס קרב שהפציץ מחנות פליטים בלבנון. פגע באזרחים. אני חשבתי שחברי הכנסת הערבים דואגים לציבור שלהם, אבל מסתבר שלא. מסתבר שהגזענות אצלהם והאנטישמיות אצלהם.
Ted, let's all honor him now.
So this first award is for Sean.
The Talmud says that I've learned much from my teachers, but more from my colleagues. And to be honored by one's colleagues, what could be better than that? And the only comment I want to make is, one of my fears and sometimes sleepless nights is based on what if people weren't exposed to what shaped me, which was the Shoah, the struggle for this creation of the State of Israel, the struggle to free Soviet Jewry and Ethiopian Jewry, things that were the dynamic that made me what I am and my commitments. Would there be a younger generation that would share those passions and commitments? And to me, these awards are the answer to that question. Yes, there is a Dor Hadash, there is a generation of committed and concerned, dedicated, and capable young people. So I'm really, it's an expression of appreciation for both the past as well as the future. Toda Rabah.
88 years young. He still rides his bicycle around Manhattan and bothers me all the time with good things. Okay, the first award is going to Sean Landris, who's already been introduced in part. Sean, come up, please. He is the co-founder and Rosh of the Jewish Jumpstart in Los Angeles. Before founding Jumpstart, Sean played a key role in revitalizing Jewish life in Slovakia. He published a book and organized a Pesach Seder in a town that had not had a Seder since the Shoah. Sean's research at several organizations, including Synagogue 3000 and the Jewish Community and Research, has illuminated the innovation ecosystem and provided valuable information on Jewish life and culture. As the founder of Jumpstart, Sean has continued to play a valuable role in helping funders and innovators reach successful outcomes. His research on the innovation sector is quoted all the time and is really so valuable to the emerging organizations and has been so helpful in bringing them up to a level of functioning beyond being startups. He's involved with our local groups in Los Angeles. His wedding in Slovakia was the first public Jewish wedding since the Holocaust. So he is someone who has lived in the United Kingdom, in Europe, and in the United States, and he embodies the international Jew in the best sense of the word. And it is a pleasure for us to give him this award. Kara Bowie. Kara Yanowski is the Corporate Director of Strategic Planning at Jewish Home Life Care. That's a nursing, it's more than a nursing home. It's a whole system of health care provision for the Jewish community and general community in New York City. And she has had a steady career growth in this organization. She's a former Ralph Goldman Fellow of the JDC, and also a JCSA Young Professional Award winner. These are two very big awards, and I think you now have the trifecta. Kara has demonstrated a profound ability to work hard and passionately to strengthen the Jewish community. Among her many accomplishments, she oversees intergenerational youth programs and demonstrates organizational and project management abilities, and is in the middle of a huge capital campaign that she oversees at Jewish Home Life Care. Kara has served as the High Holiday Cantor for a congregation in Pennsylvania for 10 years. She has, in addition to a master's degree in Jewish communal service and Near Eastern and Judaic Studies from the Hornstein program at Brandeis University, while working and doing immense things at Jewish Home Life Care, she went and got her MBA at Baruch College. So she keeps busy. And she is someone who also has been extremely involved and dedicated to furthering Jewish education and Jewish life throughout the world. So, Kara, it's my pleasure to present to you the Ted Comet Exemplar Award. Soph. Daniel. Daniel Zeltzer was born in Moldova and immigrated to the United States at the age of 15 with his family. Daniel graduated with a BA in International and Criminal Justice with a minor in Psychology and Legal Translations. At the ripe age of 26 now, he is the Program Director of the Kings Bay Y in Brooklyn. Throughout his time at the Y, Daniel has strengthened and built Jewish community, not only in his local Brooklyn, but throughout the agency's relationships with communities in Cologne, Israel, and Munich, Germany. He is the Pied Piper for the youth programs at the Kings Bay Y and is an inspirational leader of their Teen Volunteer Corps. His love of Jewish community service is evident in everything that he does and has directed his career path. He is a hands-on leader with extraordinary energy and commitment. Daniel began his Jewish journey in the United States as a volunteer for the Kings Bay Y, and over these past 7 years, he started there as the Director of Teen Services, and his career has progressed year after year. He's innovative, does cutting-edge things, and has been part of the team that has built the Kings Bay Y from being in a state of almost collapse to now expanding to several buildings and several different communities throughout Brooklyn. Daniel, at 26, was the youngest member of our tour, but certainly one of the most passionate and inquisitive, and I know that we will see great things from Daniel. So it's our pleasure to present you with this award, Daniel.